What's going on, gamers? I am Merkaba18, and today we are going to be talking about a brand new deck for Marvel Snap in anticipation of Clea. Clea is a new card coming next week. As of the filming of this video, this is 1 week away. So I wanted to put out a deck for that card because I'm super excited about it. I think it fits within an archetype that they're trying to evolve a little bit, and it also sort of merges with a deck that I have been using, which is Surge. And I think there's a way that we can kind of really make a pretty fun archetype with this one. So let's dive right in. Let me show you what we've got for this one. I'm going to show you what I'm using, why I'm using it. I'm going to give you alternatives if you have any of these cards missing, and ways that you can plug and play. So if you've never seen Clea, she is a 1-cost, 2-power card. At least as of now, that is subject to change, obviously. But she puts in your hand, the text reads, let me read this for you. It says, when this permanently gains power, you add Flames of Faltine to your hand. Now, the Flames of Faltine also is, so it's an incantation or a skill, which they're using more and more these days, which is pretty cool. On reveal, afflicts an enemy card here with -3 power, which is it's a 1-cost 0 energy. So you're spending cost to gain 3 power, essentially. We'll talk about some of the vulnerabilities to that here in just a minute. But basically, the point of this entire deck is to boost your card's power, have very low costs so that you're able to spend at least one of those every round. You kind of want to build them up in your hand a little bit and then maybe stack them as you progress through the rest of the rounds. Let's go ahead and dive in. These are the cards I'm going to be using with this one. There's 2 that I don't have yet, but I will at the timing of the video, or at the time that this is released. And I will also obviously recommend alternatives if we do not have any of these. America Chavez is going to give the top card of your deck. If that happens to be Clea, you're going to gain an instant incantation from her in your hand when you play her. It has to be in your hand, Clea does, by the way, in order to gain that incantation. But hopefully, within a couple of rounds, you'll have had her in her hand. And this deck also, without having Clea drawn, can work as a standalone deck by itself. So there's multiple alleys and multiple ways to win with this deck. Does not necessarily rely solely on Clea. We have Nico, specifically because there are a couple of ways that you can boost Nico's power, and there's a couple of different ways that you can boost Clea's power. There's different utility that's involved here. You can change locations if you need to with her. So just a really good cheap value card there as a way to benefit Clea. Primarily, you want the incantation right here, which is adds, if you play your next card, give it +2 power. So you want primarily this one. The replace the location is decent. Add a copy of it to your hand is pretty decent as well. So there's a number of different utilities that provides with you. And then we are doing Forge as a way to increase Clea's power or increase power for other cards. Just a simple way to boost power, get that incantation in your hand. Very straightforward. We're going with Surge here, both because I think Surge is probably the best card added to Marvel Snap in months. It's just a really good card to plug into almost anything, particularly like a deck like this that you want super cheap cards and you want to churn them as quickly as possible. Surge is a great one because it's going to give it a lower cost and it's going to give it an increased power. So if, for example, Clea is the next card in your deck, boom, instant incantation, ready to go. And it will also then help you cycle your other cards faster and cheaper, boost their power, lower their cost. We're going with Hulkbuster so that we can put that on Clea or on any of the other cards, again, just to kind of generally boost their power. So the idea is you're like boosting your own power a little bit. There could be situations with this deck where you win by 4, right? You win a deck with, or a lane with 4 power. It really is possible with this deck. Toxie Doxie is a really good one. It gives 2 of your cards +2 power, but you can't play them the next turn. That's the only downside. So you want to play that early, try to get that boost in, and then even if you can't play Clea, you can maybe play her incantations. Magic, as I said, this is a cycle deck, so you want to have longer cycle to make it more valuable. Magic is an underplayed card these days, even now, I think. It's just a good way to make your deck unlocked. Be aware, though, that there are a lot of decks out there right now that can kind of counter Magic by changing the zone. Be careful not to accidentally change your own zone. Watch for Merlin, stuff like that. We'll talk about other vulnerabilities in a minute. Red Guardian is here because one of the main vulnerabilities of this deck is Luke Cage. So you want to be able to remove Luke Cage if possible. You don't necessarily need to steal it with Rogue or destroy it with Enchantress. I think Red Guardian is really good because it adds negative power to their hand or to their play. If you hit them, if he plays Luke Cage and you hit it, it adds negative power to that card, which is going to help with other stuff on the deck. We're going to go with Gwenpool here to boost all of our cards. You can make a case for some other cards here. I'll make some examples of that in a minute. And then Ajax is here as your big heavy hitter, right? Ajax is going to take advantage of the fact that as many cards as possible on their side have negative power, and then you're gaining as a result of that. Now, there's one other card, obviously Clea, that we're going to be using in that deck as well. So you got Clea and Nicolas Cage, and I think those are the basics of this deck. So let's talk about some alternatives. You could use a lot of different cards to make this one work. I think one of the better ones as well, you could make a case for. There is a 3-cost card, Nakia, right somewhere. Nakia. Where are you? There you are. So she just gives everybody power. It's a quick, cheap, easy way to add power. There's also a 2-cost card called. You can make a case for Hawkeye, by the way, as well. Gets you some cycled cards that add value. You could go for Okoye, who boosts every card in the deck. Any number of other cards. You could turn this into a Silver Surfer deck if you would prefer to do that. You could use Cosmo and the 4-cost card. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of it because I'm terrible. You could use Wong and Mystique as a way of like boosting everybody's power alongside, like, for example, Ironheart. You could also do something a little bit different with this one and go with like a purely negative deck where you're like gaining power and hurting them with cards like Green Goblin. You can make a case for cards like Rocket and Raccoon. Those are some of the ones like the top that would come to mind. But I do think this is the best way to like cycle your cards as fast as possible. So as I said, you want to put down Nicholas Scratch as fast as possible. Gain power for every time you're casting Clea's spells. Get Clea down as fast as possible with a boosted power. Try to boost her as many times as you can. And then use her incantations to lower your opponent's power as fast as possible. The other thing that you could do instead of Ajax, you could make a case for like Mobius or some of these utility cards that that prevent you from taking any lowered costs inhibiting effects or anything like that. Some of the things that make this deck hard to use might be like Cosmo. If Cosmo is on a lane, you're not going to be able to hit them with the incantation. You want to worry about, especially with like Ajax or Nicholas Scratch, eventually those are going to be like pretty high power. They could get up into the 10s and higher. You're going to watch for Shang-Chi. You want to watch out for cards like Negasonic, Nocturne, or anything that's going to change your lane, like Merlin, who, like, for example, could alter turn 7. You just want to constantly be aware that turn 7 may not actually happen. You see a lot of decks these days that are like flipping on 6, turning Magic's lane into a different lane, and then the game ends before you're ready to finish it. So just be aware that that can happen. You also want to be very careful. The biggest counter to this particular deck is Luke Cage. You don't want Luke Cage down because anytime, and if they have Luke Cage down, you're going to want to use Red Guardian on it. That's primarily why that's there. Red Guardian can also bring some utility for other power producing cards or like to remove abilities from cards that you don't want them to have, like Merlin, for example, so that they can't change the lane as quickly. But Luke Cage, lane changing, your standard utility cards, anything that steals away your abilities, those are vulnerabilities for this deck. So just be aware of those as you play with this. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week for a brand new deck for the next card in Marvel Snap. Make sure to hit the sub button on the way out. Thank you for watching.